Hi, it's Norm Kelly with Timecast, all part of Peoria Live. I'm here with Bob Sulaski, a friend of mine. We went to Woodruff together. Well, the only high school worth going to. And we're just going to talk a little bit about Bob, who is an author, a wonderful writer, and a great guy. And Bob, I wonder if you just tell us a little bit about, were you born here?
No, actually, I've thought about that every time I go through downtown Peoria. I think, how did all this happen?
Yeah.
But I came. It was not, I was born in 1934, and my father and mother lived in Springfield, and he heard about a job at a new hotel in downtown Peoria,
Do you know the name?
Pear Marquette.
Really?
Yeah, he
So
got a
now then that's after 25 then.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he came hitchhiked to Peoria and got a job. Sent word, come to home, come to Peoria. I got a job. I have a job.
Oh
And so
man. Doing what? What would he do?
he worked in the kitchen.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
But that's how it all started for me in Peoria. And I've been a lifelong Peorian ever
And
since.
then when did you personally come here then? What?
Uh, Probably a week after my dad got a
Oh.
job,
And you were how old?
year and a half.
A year and a
The
half.
night I came to Peoria, the old shrine burned down.
Oh
And my
man.
mother was in Peoria for the first time. And this all the fire trucks were raging
And that
around
was
this.
a major, we had the Coliseum,
Yeah,
but don't forget the Shrine was, and
yeah,
don't forget Roos Hall. These were all venues,
yes,
great places for people to come, all from all over the world.
right,
Peoria was a mecca
yeah,
for poets and singers, and then not until 1920 or 21 did the vaudevillians
yeah,
actually really become to
right,
come here. But the Pier Marquette was the greatest thing that we'd ever seen,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And so that's where he started as a
yeah. And
cook.
then I was in Peoria that first night, and while that fire was going on, my mother said she was really afraid. All this noise, she's a farm girl. She'd
Sure.
never been around that, but that happened to be that my wife that I've been married to over 60 years, she was just 6 blocks away from my house with her father watching the fire burn. And here I was, my first night in Peoria, and my future wife was just 6 weeks away from me, and
That's
I didn't
great. That's really neat. Because I've been married. Are you supposed to say we've been married? Or I've been married 55 years. But very few people realize, who know me, realize that I was actually married once before. And when I said that finally in public, one of the guys said, "You mean there are two women out there that had an interest in you?"
know.
I said, "Well, I think so." But anyway, so did you live where? Where were you
Well,
living?
we lived on State Street, 3 blocks south of Main Street, and
Wow.
it was a great neighborhood. A lot of nice families there.
You saw it go to pieces, didn't
Well,
you?
yeah, that's right. But
Sad.
good memories of it. Nice families that lived down there. But I went to Washington Grade School up on Moss Avenue, Woodruff High School,
Hmm.
and graduated from Bradley. So
Class of what at Woodruff?
53.
And see, I was class of 50.
Yeah.
And then when you got out of high school, did you go right into Bradley?
No, actually, I was all registered at Bradley, and then I got a letter from the football coach at ISU. And my ego got a hold of me. I thought, boy, I'm going to play football at ISU. I
Mhm.
decided I wasn't going to play football anymore. But I went over there one semester and played on the football team, and I realized I don't want to be a teacher. And so I came back and went to work for the Corps of Engineers for about a year. And I told you about my experience on working on the river when they
Sure.
put the Murray Baker Bridge in. I crawled up on that pier to locate it on the maps, and on the February below zero day, and I thought I'm going to get off of this pier and get me a good
Get
job.
someplace where it's
So
warm.
I went to Caterpillar and got a job. I went in the 4-year apprentice course, and I went through that. And then I started to night school and went to night school for 10 years, got my degree from Bradley.
10
10
years?
years, yeah.
And I got out of Bradley in 3. Shows you how smart I am. No, I went on the GI Bill, and it was a conveyor belt. excuse me, there are guys who really did go there as a student, but I just went there just to realize I had to get a degree. I went back down to RG Laternal, and they offered my job back to me that I had. I actually got a job out of high school. Why would anyone hire me out of high school? I don't know. But once I did that, then I went round the clock. Too.
Oh,
But you played football a lot, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but it's a little different than it is now, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, were you? But you were on the varsity, and you played 3 or 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
Wow. What did you do? What guard or what?
Oh, I was an end on offense and a linebacker on defense.
And so Buck Lynch was gone, though, right? Because I keep mentioning him because I think, not that I know anything about sport, but he was defense and offense all the time, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah, and then you went through the Caterpillar thing. What I was interested in, how on earth you ended up writing a book. This is called 50 Years of Drumsticks and Pigskins.
What a title. Where did I get a title like that?
It was a little stupid, wasn't it? I remember when we talked about that.
You said, boy, don't call it the history of the Turkey
right.
Day. You said, put a good title like this.
Uh-huh.
And that was your first words out of your mouth.
Because we met that day.
Yeah.
And I just said, why don't you call it Pigskins and whatever drumstick? and then I went later on in that day. I said, why don't I just steal that title? He won't use it. I thought maybe I'd do some because the Turkey Day games, and you're the absolute expert on the Turkey Day game. As a matter of fact, your last article in News and Views is called Thanksgiving football games, and that was so important to us, all of us. And did they really have 6,000 and something like that?
Oh, more than that. The highest attendance was in 1980, 11,500.
1980.
1980.
I didn't realize.
Manual was playing for their 35th consecutive win against Peoria Central.
Wow.
And in fact, my brother played for Central in that game. And I remember in a traffic jam trying to get to the stadium.
God. And, we of course, would, I don't know how we got there. I mean, we lived in El Vista. All I remember is that we would usually just go over the fence. We would just sneak in all the time. I don't know why. Did they charge students?
They probably did, but I did the same thing.
I had no money.
The back behind the fence?
Yeah.
Behind the bleachers?
Exactly where we did.
And the policemen would stand at the top with their backs to you, and they knew what you were doing.
That's why they turned their back.
Yeah,
they didn't want to mess with anybody like that. No. But we did have a lot of shoving matches and fights and pushes and a couple of tough guys. My brother Gene went to Central. I told you when he was a freshman, he scored 6 touchdowns in one game.
Yeah.
And he was, the war came along. A lot of great athletes and a lot of people who had thinking about going to high school and college. And in 1941, that ended their lives.
The library has had the foresight to every time a Peoria boy died in the war, they encased his obituary in plastic.
Really?
And there's a pile of them.
I have never seen those.
And I went down when I was working on my book, and I went through that. And it was amazing how many times it'd say, he played for Central, he played for Spalding. But
would there really be 662 of those?
I don't think think they have them all, but they've got quite a few.
But don't forget, we had Peoria County and Peoria City, and 23,110 actually went. But we didn't. When they died, they just called them Peoria boys. But we never thought the county was part of us, did we, Bob?
No. As you connect the Turkey Day with the war, I covered that a couple of ways in my book. The first Spalding and Woodruff Turkey Day game was in 1939. Woodruff and Central and Manual started earlier that 1915. But when Peoria and when Spalding and Woodruff started playing, a fellow named Lenhausen can't remember his first name right now, but he was Mayor Linhausen's younger brother.
Oh.
And so I called Bob and said, "You're Clark." Clark was his name. He was a 3-sport athlete at Spalding, good-looking guy. He made 3 touchdowns in the first Woodruff Spalding game. So I called Bob and I said, "Boy, I'd like to interview your brother about." He said, "Well, I'm sad to tell you that he died in World War II and haven't found his body for a year." Oh, what a sad story.
They never found it?
They found it a year later. After they found his billfold washed up on shore. But anyway, Bob bought my book. And the granddaughters of Clark Linhausen live in California. And he sent them each a copy. And I got the most touching letters from them.
Not neat.
Thanks for preserving my father's memory.
I've had that experience because I found 5 people died in the line of duty, and I finally got their names on the monument. But what was really wonderful is just exactly what you said.
Yeah.
The people that said, no one's mentioned my grandfather's name, and we don't even talk about him ourselves. And to think that Norm, more about him than I do.
Yeah. Well, people will call me and say, I heard you wrote a book about Thanksgiving. I think my grandfather played in a football game. I said, well, when on Thanksgiving?
Sure.
I said, well, when did he graduate from high school? They said, well, 1941. I said, what was his name? And while I'm talking on the phone, I get the book out. He says, he's in there.
Well, Bob, why did you write this book?
Well,
I've had to answer this by a guy. Let you answer him too.
I'll bet you have.
I really have.
And that's a common question. And how long did you work on it?
Yeah.
But Ed Murphy, I don't know if you know Ed.
Sure. Oh, sure.
Well, Ed played in Thanksgiving game.
Well, you replaced him in News and Views, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. Thanks to you, I did.
That's right. The minute I saw that he was out of there, I said, I really hope Bob will answer this. But you didn't really want to get into that.
Well, no, I didn't think I would be any good at it.
Be able to come up every month. And of course, I've written that now for years and years and years. And I swear to you, the last time I put what I've just written down, I said, that's it. I don't know anything else, and I don't know what I'm going to write about, but somewhere it's there. But how did the idea come about?
Well, Ed Murphy was planning a reunion of people that played in the Thanksgiving football game, and he assembled a group of about 15 people that were involved in it, coaches and players. Mm-hmm. And my coach, Virgil Boucher, and I were the Woodruff representatives.
Love Virgil.
And we had a meeting, and I thought, well, I'll go down to the library and see if they've got anything on it. And I said to the girl, do you have anything on the Turkey Day game? She says, huh?
The Turkey Day.
Yeah, she didn't
I didn't know turkeys played football.
No, right, that's right. Well, she didn't know anything about it. I thought, boy, that's a mistake. And then a fella, I can't remember his name, nice guy. He's passed away. He worked down at the library.
Like Dale.
Friends of the Library. He was involved in that.
I know. Yes.
And he called. We had the walls covered with historic pictures of football games and people involved in Turkey Day. He says, is there any way you can take these pictures and we can get them on film down at the library? And I got thinking, boy, that'd be a fun project because I'm interested. You know how yourself, if you're interested in something, you can really enjoy writing about it. So I thought, I'm going to, nobody knew for sure when the game started. Mm-hmm. They said, well, 1918, 1915. But so I thought, I'm gonna spend a year working on this, and it was fascinating. The names, the names that you think of, you knew from your childhood.
Sure.
That played Benny Schwartz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's the grocery store. Yeah. No, he was on the first Manual State Championship basketball team, and he played guard and linebacker for the Manual football team.
No one would have known that.
No, and Bob Morgan and Eugene Leiter played against each other.
And these are mayors and great people of our lifetime.
Yeah. And as I went through the stories and interviewed people, the interesting, unusual stories that I've run across. for example, one incident, I forget what year it happened, but there was a guy that played football for Central, and his buddies wanted to do something special for him. I forget what his name was. Famous Peoria name, but they said let's get a football he makes his last touchdown with. Give it to him.
Oh,
Now, how are you going to get that? Well,
yeah, how?
Well, you know how when someone kicks an extra point, a ball boy would get behind the goalpost and catch the ball and throw it to the official. Well, these two kids, one of them got behind the goalpost and he caught the ball when he kicked the extra point, and instead of throwing it back, he just turned tail and ran for War Memorial Drive.
Sounds like me.
Yeah, and when he got to the fence, he threw the ball over the fence to another fella standing on the other side.
He had that all planned.
Yes, and so 8,000 people sat in the stands and watched the game ball disappear to a waiting car on War Memorial Drive.
Wow, that's a great story. And you know who that person is?
Yes, I do. I know.
You know?
In fact, I found out by accident. I found the name of a fella down at Manuel that played. It was an unusual French name. So I looked in the phone book, and this guy's name was there. So I called this guy. I said, "Are you in relation to him?" "Yeah, that was my uncle. He played at Manuel years ago." He said, "But I was involved in the Turkey Day games because I stole a football."
Oh, man. And he kept it all those years?
No, he gave it to the fellow that scored the touchdown. I forget what his name was. I've got Jokic, the Jokic family.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But of course we misspelled it all. I mean, mispronounced it all the
Another
time.
little interesting story I discovered. In 1913, Manuel and Central played out at Bradley Field. And in the middle of the first, Central scored the first touchdown, Louis Newmiller.
Now think of those names and where they went.
He was president of Caterpillar.
Think of that.
Yeah, and he made the first touchdown. And then Manuel scored a touchdown in the third quarter. And there was an argument as to whether the period had ended. So a big fight broke out on the field.
An actual fight.
A major fight. The players were fighting. The fans ran on the field. It took a half an hour for the police to settle things down and finish.
On Thanksgiving Day.
Thanksgiving. No, this was not Thanksgiving.
Oh.
This was in the middle of the week. This was before Thanksgiving. And the paper wrote the next day, "This is not what football is all about. The cussing, kicking, fighting, biting is not the American way." So they banned all athletic competition between the only public schools in Peoria, Central and Manuel.
Wow.
And for 2 years, they never played each other. Then they called a peace conference down at City Hall, and they said, "Look, we're going to try this again, but we're going to resume it on Thanksgiving Day, 1915." And that's how the Turkey Day game started.
Oh, it's a wonderful story. It's in your book.
Yeah.
By the way, is that book available now?
Well,
Can you still
I just got
sell it?
every once in a while I buy 25 more, and I've sold and given away 800.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I did the same thing, only and I gave mine, though, rarely to people. I gave it to libraries and a couple old folks' home and things like that. But when we decide how many more we want to get and how many, I just finally decided I'm done. I quit. But then I wrote another one.
Yeah.
And then I end up writing like 14 of them. And every time I have a book called A Child of the City, and I wrote it.
I see those stories in News and Views.
That's true. And I decided that that's it. I'm not going to do anything with this book. And yet there they were, like 86 celebrities we call celebrities, and some of them really are major.
Well, McCluggage.
Yeah.
You wrote about McCluggage.
I did. He was really something. And I had some people who knew the concept of my book was to be a celebrity. And one of the guys said, "Well, Norm, why do you think David McCluggage was a celebrity?" And I said, "Do you ever have a bridge named after you?" I shut him up, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
But David was a very extremely hard-working person. And the big fight was how are we going to name the bridge? And they named everything from Roosevelt, you name it, they named it. Well, finally, then the mayor, they had a night when they decided that uh, they were tied. And I think the mayor has the power then to vote. And he said, well, then I'm naming it David McCluggage. It was that simple.
Well, Norm, and there's a lot of people today, if it weren't for the naming of the bridge and they hear my name McCluggage, they would never, most people don't know he was a mayor.
They don't even know anything about
And
David.
the bad part of it, they don't care.
I know. And you know the funny thing about David McCluggage, after he became the mayor and left Peoria, he went to Washington, D.C. to be a doorman. A doorman with the United States Senate. I mean, come on, the mayor of Peoria, we just didn't think that was happening, but he knew what he was doing because his buddy was a senator.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long after he came back here as the United States Postmaster of Peoria.
Yeah.
So he knew exactly what he was doing.
You've grown up in the city like I have. As you walk around the city, does that evoke memories for you?
Man.
The biggest, one of the most important things in my mind was at the intersection of Main and Jefferson when World War II ended.
Yes.
I came downtown Peoria.
You and all of us, huh?
Yeah.
I of course have written descriptive stories of that day. I told in my story it was the first time I ever kissed a woman.
I was in that crowd someplace.
There he is. I see you, Bob. Isn't that beyond belief?
Yeah.
So I wonder if I really described it. I just said we couldn't
Well, let me
move.
read you something
okay,
here.
do 'em.
This was about the end of World War I. Very touching paragraph.
All right.
And I put it in my book, and I credited the author. Even before dawn, Peorians were milling around City Hall and the courthouse, greeting one another with hugs and handshakes. What a nice image that is. When the streetcars began running, people came by the hundreds with their noisemakers. The mayor ordered all taverns and stores to be closed by noon as the military bands played his patriotic music and long parades of people snaked through the downtown streets. Church bells rang out at noon throughout the city. Around midnight, only confetti and paper blew around the empty downtown Peoria streets. World War I was over, and Peoria was looking forward to getting its sons back home. You wrote that.
Really?
Yeah. Boy, that is a nice paragraph.
I probably stole that, Bob.
Well, I stole it too.
Well, good. It's such a beautiful
It is. What the vision. And when World War II ended, I came downtown. There were people crying. There were people dancing.
That's right.
There were people drunk.
Oh.
A drunk grabbed me and my friend and bumped our heads together and gave us both a dime.
Yeah, well, I would have blasted that guy. Yeah. I'm serious. I tell you, there's a lot of fear in my lifetime. And we came across maybe 10 or 16 soldiers. And they were coming right straight at us. And I tell you, we just took off running. The truth is, and we've got 4 minutes. And the truth is, we had a lot of soldiers that came from Camp Ellis.
Yes.
And Camp Ellis, Bob, you went there. I went there once when they had an open house. But you saw something that I never saw. And I wrote about these men, but I want you to tell us what happened to you.
Well, I was probably 9 or 10 years old, and we had a nice milkman in our area, in our neighborhood, Charlie Clark, Mr. Clark. And one day he said to me, "Would you like to see a prisoner of war?"
A prisoner of war?
Yeah. He said, "I've got to deliver some milk down to Camp Ellis. Would you like to go along with me?" I said, "Sure." And we stopped halfway, and he's going to buy me a breakfast. I'd never been in a restaurant to have.
Sure.
He said, "What would you like to eat?" I said, "How about a Baby Ruth candy bar?" And he had eggs and bacon. I had a Baby Ruth candy bar.
Oh, really?
But we went to Camp Ellis, and we drove around, and here we went past a baseball diamond. And here were these prisoners of war with PW on their back, raking the ball diamond. I saw that. I locked the door.
Yeah.
I was scared.
And people who don't know Camp Ellis, it was a massive building, 54 miles from here. Table Grove and other little towns, they bought them all up. And this was a huge thing. They had as many as 25,000 soldiers there. And this was their really last training. And many of those men went off to die. Believe you me when I tell you that. Well, 662 of ours didn't come back.
Right.
And when I went out there, they had a machine gun fire and tanks and things, and I loved that kind of stuff. But then of course, would get off. Some of them would just train, and then Friday they would get a pass, anywhere from 1,000 to 3,500 easy. They would come here, right to Peoria. We had trains that went out there.
I heard this Peoria was off limits to them.
Yeah, that was the biggest joke, and I argued with that. I told that woman right straight to her face. I said, off limits? You mean everything I've written about Camp Ellis and the Peoria, it's all a lie? Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I said, well, they came here.
They lit this town up.
And they almost damn near blew it up. and some, let's face it, a lot of people don't know this either. A lot of our men in jails, misdemeanors, little things, they all were given a choice. You join the service and we'll forget it. And they did. And there were some really terrible people that went in, folks, that were talking about our wonderful soldiers, but they weren't all angels.
But I'm sure it helped them.
Saved their lives, but it also cost them their lives too. But Camp Ellis was a major business for us, and you must read some of my stuff from the book Lost in Yesterday's News, because I reveal some real truth. But it was a big deal for us. In the first 6 months, we allowed them into our own homes, and we treated them, and then we found out, wait a minute, this is some of them. They would steal about 300 cars every weekend, Bob, to get back out there. There
was a fella named Reynolds that he died recently, but he was a prisoner of war for 3 years. And I said, did they have a celebration for you when you came home? And he said, no, I took the train to Peoria, took the bus to my house, and walked down the street to my house, knocked on the door, and
said, I'm home.
God. And he'd been a prisoner of war for 3 years.
Just think of that. Bob, we have less than 40 seconds. We could talk forever because we're real Peorians. We really, truly are. I don't know, maybe that doesn't mean anything to some people, but we're proud of it. It was the greatest city, I think, in America. One of the best liberty towns in the history of wars. It truly was. And we had 5 USOs in our town.
We did.
5. And sadly, out in front, it said for coloreds only on one of them. But that's who we were, folks. But, it's amazing how it changed. So thank you for listening or watching, or what are you guys doing? Thank you very much. I'll see you next week. There it is. I'm good.